Well, hello everybody and welcome to another video. This is Sandy and I'm going to show you today how to take an image like this one, it's a magnolia, and turn it into this. Now the first image was certainly fine. You're going to see the coloring of that part. Part 2 is going to be over on the Simon Says Stamp channel, so I'll link you to that at the very end. I'm stamping the image with my favorite things ink, my new favorite black ink for coloring with my Copics. I still use my Memento. I grab whichever one is in the top of the drawer, but I do like this one. It gives you a little bit of a darker, richer black, I guess you could say. Lay down my first color, my base tone color, and now I'm going to add my shadows on top of it because I always go to my darkest color next. And I'm using purple. Yeah, I know. I use purple a lot on my people. If you've watched my other videos, and I invite you to subscribe to my channel and check out all the other stuff that's there, because I do use purple a lot. Purples and blues tend to make some nice skin tones when you do things like this, which is go over it with the mid-tone color. You don't have to use this combination of them, but the idea of using purples and blues in your shadows is something that can really change how you color and give you some new color combinations. And especially if you don't have any good colors to use for shadows on skin anyway, it's a perfect way to use some of your other markers to achieve skin tones. I'm blending that out with the light color, and I did pull a little bit of the skin tones over into the horns of the little dragon because I want to be able to, I guess, tie these images together. I'm going to try to do that throughout with all of the colors. And here's a last coat of E11 to just blend out some of the places where I got a little bit of mottling going. And now for some BGs. I'm also going to tie these across the image. She's going to have a blue-green dress, and the dragon is going to have little blue-green details on him. So for right now, I'm just laying in where I want those blue-greens to be so that I remember where they are. Most of that is going to be covered up. There's not going to be a lot in some of these areas of the BG10. But next I'm going in with my BG18 and adding in some shadows. I'm adding it in the places where two objects join tend to be the places where shadows are, and at the bottoms of things. I've put a little bit in each of the diamonds that are in his scales along his back, and you're going to see eventually that the light is going to disappear on some of those, but it adds just a little bit of extra detail as I go over it now with the BG15, the medium tone, and it just really starts to pop away from the rest of the image. His little hands and fingers are going to have just very little bit of the medium color in them. I didn't put any of the dark in at all. And now I'm blending them with the BG10. So I want to keep that really soft. And his toes and his nose are going to blend into my second color whenever I get around to that. So his tummy's going to get dark too. I'm going to try to add just a little bit more depth to him as we go. And I just keep fussing with her little tummy and trying to get the dimension just right. But now we're going to move on to the YGs. And I thought a YG-BG combination might be fun to try on a card, and I think it worked on this in the long run, but right now it just starts looking a little odd to my eye as I'm sitting here doing my voiceover. But I think the final image was just so darling, so I still liked it anyway, even though it looks a little strange as I'm going through the process. Somebody recently mentioned that they thought that sometimes my images, as I'm coloring them, can look like a real hot mess until I get them done, and it's almost like there's some sort of magic thing that happens, and that's what happens often with Copics, is it's magic by the time you're done, but it just takes a while to get there, so you have to be just willing to pay the price and spend some time working on a lot of those details on the image. So I'm using a whole long series of YGs in this because I really wanted to give it some depth. You can use fewer of the YGs than I'm using. I'm using the 99, 97, 95, 93, 91, and that's a lot of YGs. But if you have a large range like that, you can get a blend a lot easier. You don't have to work as hard to get the colors to work together because they just kind of naturally do, since you're putting down just a tiny bit of each one. But when you do this, you just have to add only a tiny bit of each one. You don't want to go crazy with any single one of them, or you're not going to have room left in a tiny image like this for all the other shades. So I'm just continuing to blend out. This is the YG95, one of my very favorite YGs. I use that for grasses and backgrounds and things. It's a nice olivey type of green. And the YG93, adding just a little bit of that in a bunch of different places to try to soften out the blending on the whole our little guy here. I'm not going to reserve much room for the YG91 when I go back in it on the places that are the really dark YG, because I want them to differentiate and pop away from the others. The YG91 though, I just have to softly blend it over that BG10, and it sort of adds just this really, really super soft mix of the two colors. Now before I add the hair, I just am adding some real quick YR000 to create a little bit of a background glow. And you notice I didn't get crazy with it, and this is sped up, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time messing with it because, yeah, I want to spend the rest of the time on the rest of the image. So I'm just going around with some colorless blender to really soften that. It's such a light color, everything else is so dark, it's going to visually just kind of disappear. Now the YR31 is what I'm going to use for the hair, and she's going to be a little blonde girly. And I'm just tracing over those long hairs. This is one of those images that doesn't have an actual outline to the hair, like it doesn't stop somewhere. It just kind of keeps going in these little tiny strands. And I always struggle with how to color them because there's no end. So I just traced over them, and then I'll add some of the shading to the inside portion so that it adds some richness to it. But I don't want to go out with my other colors into those little strands. So I left the strands with only that YR00 in the background and a little bit of the YR31. I'm using a little of the BV00 again on the hair, same principle to dull down that color, and then going over it with the YR31. So if you want to see the amping up of this image, then click on the center image, and this will take you over to see the video over on the Simon Says Stamp channel. Thanks so much for watching. Click the like button, favorite, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.